Hello again, Frank. This is video 2 on the flight from KSBO to KSLC. I've made one modification to this, and that is the final star, and I selected 34 left, and I'm going to use the BVL1 STAR. Other than that, things are the same. So enjoy the flight with me until I get to the final approach area and the final star. So we're now in the cruise, just approaching 17,000 feet, and we are heading towards BYI, which is around 100 nautical miles away from this present point. So level flight now, 17,000 feet, 270 knots, and heading towards BYI. Okay, whilst we're in the cruise, let's just have a look at our MCDU flight plan here. Having reached BYI, I shall be at 17,000 feet. I'm then going to head towards BVL, still at 17,000 feet. And then reach the top of descent, still at 17,000 feet. And then reach Knoll, still at 17,000 feet. So although I've passed my top of descent point, I am still at 17,000 feet. When I reach Watts, I need to be at 14,150. It's just recalculating that. I still need to be at 17,000. But when I get to DUNLP, I need to only be at 8,000. So I need to maintain my altitude of 17,000 until I reach Watts. This is the waypoints that have been calculated by the the MCDU for the BVL1 STAR. There is a ridge of mountains as we go into this area. That's why we need to maintain our altitude. You'll notice that Watts has now been calculated again at 14,150. So I'm going to stay at 17,000 all the way to Knoll, and then we will look at what we need to do. Now 3 miles from BYI, and we'll shortly make a right hand turn towards BVL. Turning now towards BVL on a heading of around about 160s, 165, something like that. It's going to turn and follow this line now. Heading at around about 165 degrees. BVL is now 110 nautical miles away from us. Get back once we get towards BVL. Okay, I am now approximately 10 miles from BVL. I'm going to make a left turn towards Knoll, and I'm going to maintain my altitude of 17,000 feet. If I check the MCDU, 17,000 feet at BVL, 17,000 feet at Knoll. Just under 3 miles to run. Aircraft making its turn towards Knoll. Still maintaining 270 knots and 17,000 feet. As we fly this next leg, we will look at our final approach in more detail. Levelling out now on the new heading towards Knoll. Now if I look at this final section in more detail, here is BVL, here is Knoll, see just past top of descent. But it's telling me that I should still be at 17,000 feet at once. We will then make a right turn to DUNLP. I need to be at 8,000 feet at this point. And then it will make a left turn, descend to 6,100 feet, and then make my final approach to landing on runway 34L, 34 left. So, straight ahead to Watts, right turn to DUNLP, left turn to the final waypoint, which is called Flag, and then touchdown. The MCDU is now showing an altitude of around 14,140 feet at Watts. This changes, you see it's changed now 17,000. So basically we need to be fairly high at this particular point. But I need to be at 8,000 feet at DUNLP. So I'm going to maintain 17,000 feet to Watts, then descend to 8,000. So I'm going to dial in 8,000 feet as my next required altitude, but not do anything else. I need to click this button to make this altitude become the active altitude when I have passed Watts and not before. Great Salt Lake now in my view. Four miles now from Knoll, proceeding in the same heading to Watts. Then turn and make my descent to 8,000 feet. 17,000, 17,000. There are a number of mountain ridges in this area. That is the need for 17,000 feet at this point. I am heading at this point straight for Watts. You can see that that is a distance of around about 8 miles from my present position, and directly in front of me is this mountain range. I'm 5 miles now from Watts. It's then going to make a right hand turn and descend to DUNLP. We have to cross this mountain range. So a slow descent from 17 to 8,000 should ensure that that is done safely. We have to monitor this ridge. Aircraft is now turning at Watts. We need to be at 8,000 feet at DUNLP. Now you can see that we have this mountain ridge right in our path. It says that 8,000 will be safe. I'm going to assume that that is going to be okay, and I am now going to make my next required altitude 8,000 feet. 8,000 feet has now shown up here as my required altitude. I am descending. Engines have gone to idle. ILS is flashing here to say that the ILS beam is now available. I'm going to wait until I make this final turn before I select to pick that up. I'm more concerned at the moment about the mountain range in front of me. I have to ensure that I pass that range safely.
AC-4668 near approach, good evening, altimeter 290.
Looks as though this gentle descent will give me good clearance of the ridge. Okay, safely over the ridge, descending to 8,000 feet at DUNLP. Then make the final turn, at which point I will switch on the LS and LS buttons and follow my ILS approach. Safely over the ridge. Now 6 miles from DUNLP, I'm going to select LS.
LS.
I now have my ILS bars and glide slope. At this particular point, the glide slope is below me, but you can see that it is now coming up to be centralized. We'll shortly make a final turn. If I switch back to map view, we can verify that we're on the final turn at DUNLP.
AC-4561 near approach, good evening.
Making the turn now. Now I need to really concentrate on my ILS approach. I now have my ILS bars active. I have my glide slope active. I'm going to select localizer. That will enable the aircraft to track the localizer bars. Once I have put those up, I am then going to select approach and follow both the ILS bars and the glide slope. I need to start to slow down. I'm going to put flaps 1. And now select approach. System will now follow the ILS bars and the glide slope. Passing through 8,000 feet. The altitude is now not held, it will follow the glide slope descent. I'm going to slow down a bit further. I'm going to put flaps 2. Speed is now descending to around 160. Airport right ahead of me. Centralize my view a little for my final approach. Glide slope centered, heading down to 140. Flaps are now set to 2. Gear down now that I am on the final glide slope. Runway now directly ahead of me. ILS bars centralised, glide slope centralised, configured for landing, auto brakes set, just around 140 knots, flaps 2. Confirmation that I am held on the localizer and the glide slope. Single autopilot at the moment. I can, if I wish, now select second autopilot, category 3 dual autopilot landing. All looking good at the moment. Runway directly in front of me. Follow the call-outs now from the autopilot.
$1,000.
Flaps 3.
Echo cross 22 left, hold for 22 right, stop.
Approaching 3-4 left.
$500.
Flaps full.
Delta 1807, turn left, heading 140, contact Pacific Coast.
400.
Delta 1807, MLS turn, switching today.
$300.
Good evening, weather.
200.
This is 348, runway 22 right, clear for takeoff.
Clear takeoff, 22 right, Central 348.
Runway 355.
100. 70, 60, 50, 40, 30, 20. Retard, retard.
Touchdown. Nose wheel down. Reverse thrust. Spoilers. Welcome to Salt Lake City. Just have a look at the replay of our final touchdown. Should be just about a perfect landing flight. As it's on replay, reverse thrust and things may not actually work. We're just looking at the angle of approach and final touchdown. Main wheels down in the touchdown area. Nose wheel down, center line, reverse thrust. Welcome to Salt Lake City. I don't think there was much wrong with that particular flight, Frank. Engines back to idle. Spoilers down. Turn off the runway. and follow your instructions to your gate. I hope that is going to get you your P1. Best of luck, Frank. I really hope that helps, Frank, and that you can contact me very shortly and tell me that you hold your P1 license with Virtual Delta Airlines. I enjoyed that. I hope it is exactly what you need.